The worship of the day was shared by both males and females. Calvinism's egalitarian and emotive parts attracted both males and females. Males and females were regarded to be similarly very likely to be amongst the chosen, historical analyst Alistair Raff writes. Godly men treasured the prayers and discourse of their female co-religionists, and this reciprocity provided for beautiful marital relationships and strong relationships between males and females. Moreover, the fervent relationships between the priest and his female parishioners were exceptionally effective. Laywomen were given some new spiritual roles and a major place in prayer companies for the first time. In 1603, James VI, King of Scots, acquired the English throne and ended up being King James I of England, leaving Edinburgh for London and uniting England and Scotland under a single king. In spite of James's best efforts to develop a new royal throne of Great Britain, the union was an individual or dynastic union, with the crown staying both unique and separate. Scots settled in what was traditionally the most challenging area of the kingdom in Ulster, thanks to the purchase of the Irish crown together with the English crown, with most likely 50,000 Scots living in the province by the mid-17th century. In the Western Highlands and Islands, James used a much different approach to developing his power. The Statutes of Iona were enacted as a consequence of the increased army resources readily available, specifically the English Navy, which pushed Hebridean clan leaders to incorporate with the remainder of Scottish society. Due to an absence of financing and prepared people, tries to establish a Scottish colony in the USA and Canada and Nova Scotia were typically not successful. Although James tried to convince the Scottish Church to take in part of his southern kingdom's High Church Anglicanism, he had minimal success. Charles I, his child and heir, took things a big step farther in the year 1637, introducing an English-style prayer book into the Scottish Church. Anger and comprehensive rioting took place due to this. According to legend, it was begun by Jenny Geddes, who flung a stool in St. Giles Cathedral. The National Covenant was prepared in the year 1638 by agents from numerous parts of Scottish civilization who challenged the king's liturgical changes. In November of the exact same year, the Scottish bishops were officially expelled from the church, which was consequently made up on a full Presbyterian basis, throughout a conference of the General Assembly in Glasgow. Charles accumulated an army force, but because neither side wanted to run the risk of a full-fledged army war, a momentary truce was reached at the pacification of Berwick. The problem stayed unsolved till 1640, when Charles's northern forces were beaten by the Scots at the Battle of Newburn, west of Newcastle, in a resumption of hostilities. Throughout the bishops' wars, Charles tried to organize an army of Irish Catholics, but was pushed to back down because of prevalent opposition in Scotland and England. The reaction from this endeavor stimulated a revolt in Ireland, requiring Charles to look for financing from the English Parliament. The English Civil War emerged because of Parliament's desire for reform. Modern chroniclers describe the Wars of the Three Kingdoms as a series of civil wars that surpassed England, Ireland, and Scotland in the 1640s and 1650s. In the meantime, the Covenanters were left in charge of Scotland, where they organized their own army and tried to impose their spiritual settlement on Episcopalians and Roman Catholics in the north. His spiritual policies in England triggered similar hostility, and from 1629 he ruled without speaking with Parliament. As the civil disputes advanced, the English parliamentarians looked for armed support from the Scots Covenanters. A solemn league and covenant was formed, guaranteeing the settlement of the Scottish Church and promising more reform in England. Scottish forces were essential in Charles I's defeat, especially at the Battle of Marston Moor. For a period, an army led by the Earl of Leven occupied the north of England. Regardless of the Covenanter government's objections, Charles I was executed in the year 1649, and his child was announced King Charles II in Edinburgh practically instantly. In 1650, Oliver Cromwell led an invasion of Scotland, beating the Scottish army at Dunbar, and after that beating a Scottish invasion of England on September 3, 1651, at Worcester, the anniversary of his triumph at Dunbar. Cromwell rose to prominence in the English administration, and an English force led by George Monk took Scotland.